Doctors said his heart couldn't take it anymore. Retirement was beckoning, but when a teenager gets himself in deep trouble, Ray can't bear to stand by and watch. He could be the lifeline the kid needs, but it might cost him his own life in return. Ray Kellerman had it all figured out. 3 weeks until his pension kicked in fully. 3 weeks until he could sleep in till noon, spend his time watching old westerns, and enjoying the retirement he'd earned. After 40 years of managing assembly lines and keeping machinery running. But life had other plans. On a Tuesday morning, Principal Pierce showed up at his door, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Pierce wasn't just any principal. He was the kid Ray had helped raise after his father's death 25 years ago. Ray had been his dad's best friend and work partner at the factory. And when the accident happened, Ray stepped up without being asked. He'd been there for everything: high school graduation, college applications, tuition help when Pierce's mom struggled, late-night phone calls when Pierce doubted himself, his wedding day. Pierce was like a son to him, and Ray couldn't be prouder when he took a job as headmaster at a local school. But now Pierce's school was in crisis. Their teacher had quit without notice, leaving 23 kids with nowhere to go. The state inspector was coming, the school board was panicking, and Pierce was desperate. Ray was sympathetic, but his response was blunt. I fix things that break, not kids that are broken. Anyway, I retire in 3 weeks. Just 1 week, he pleaded. That's all I'm asking. Something in Pierce's desperation reminded him of every late-night conversation they'd had about making a difference, about Pierce's dreams of helping kids who felt forgotten. If Ray walked away now, he wouldn't just be letting Pierce down, but betraying his belief that someone always steps up when it matters. Against his better judgment, he agreed to help. The school sat at the edge of town, what had once been a thriving elementary, and middle school now housed grades K-12 in a building meant for half that many students. Ray's worst fears were confirmed immediately. The kids sensed his uncertainty like sharks smell blood in the water. But it was 15-year-old Aiden Marsh who caught his attention. Calloused hands, defiant green eyes, and the ability to appear engaged while completely zoning out. The boy had talent. Ray could see it in the intricate mechanical drawings he sketched in the notebook margins when he thought no one was looking. There was something familiar about Aiden's restless energy, the way he drummed his fingers when frustrated. It reminded Ray of his son Michael at that age, before the accidents, before the pills, before everything fell apart. Ray's son had died of an overdose at 19. His wife Sarah had followed 2 years later, taken by cancer and a broken heart. Ray had been too focused on providing to see that Michael needed more than financial support. Now, looking at Aiden, he wondered if he was getting a second chance he didn't deserve. The first real test came on Thursday. Ray was explaining basic algebra when Aiden suddenly stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is pointless," Aiden announced. "When am I ever going to use this garbage? Are you going to teach us something real? Or just more useless numbers that won't pay anyone's bills?" 22 pairs of eyes watched, waiting to see how the substitute would handle this challenge. In the factory, Ray would have written up an employee for that kind of outburst. But something in Aiden's voice, the underlying frustration rather than pure disrespect, made him pause. "You're right," Ray said finally. "Algebra won't help you fix a transmission, but understanding ratios will help you mix the right amount of fluid. At the most basic level, math is just problem solving, and that's a skill you'll use every day of your lives." He walked to the whiteboard and drew a simple circuit diagram. "Everything's connected, son. The question is whether you want to understand the connections or just stumble through life wondering why things don't work." For just a moment, Aiden's mask slipped, and Ray saw genuine curiosity. The boy sat down without another word but Ray noticed he stopped sketching and started taking notes. The following Monday, Principal Pierce called Ray into his office before the school started. His face was grim, and Doane Bellamy sat across from his desk, his usually cheerful demeanor replaced by controlled anger. Someone had broken into Don's woodworking shop over the weekend, causing $2,000 in damage. Spray-painted obscenities covered the walls, expensive tools were destroyed, and finished pieces were ruined. Security footage showed Aiden Marsh staring into the camera, clear as day. Doane had been a fixture in the town for 30 years, helping seniors with home repairs and teaching kids woodworking skills. He'd employed Aiden the previous summer, trusted him with expensive equipment, and treated him like family. The betrayal cut deep. The school board meets tomorrow night, Pierce explained. With his academic record, and now this, they're talking about permanent expulsion, and Doane has every right to press charges. That afternoon, Ray kept Aiden after class. The boy slouched in his chair, radiating defiance, but Ray could see the fear underneath. "Want to tell me what happened?" Ray asked. "Does it matter? Everyone's already decided I'm guilty." "I'm not everyone." The story came out in a rush. Doane had promised Aiden a job after school, saying he had talent. Then he'd hired a college kid instead, telling Aiden he needed more maturity. He'd called Aiden's mother to discuss his attitude problems, as if the boy weren't standing right there. "I worked my ass off for him all summer," Aiden said, his voice cracking. "Learned everything. And he threw me away like garbage." Ray saw himself at 15, feeling powerless when adults made decisions about his life without explanation. But he also saw Michael, who'd made similar choices when hurt and confused, choices that had led down a path Ray couldn't follow. "So you decided to hurt him back." "I didn't plan it. I was walking by Saturday night, saw his stupid perfect workshop, and I lost it." The tears the boy was trying hard not to shed finally broke free. "I know I screwed up. I know everyone hates me now. But I can't take it back." That night, Ray sat in his kitchen, staring at the bottle of heart medication his doctor had prescribed. The stress of the last week had triggered more episodes, sharp pains that left him breathless, reminders that his body wasn't as strong as his will. His doctor had said the same thing for years. Avoid stress, take it easy, eat cleaner. But earlier that day, Dr. Martinez had delivered some devastating news. "Your last EKG shows irregular patterns," she'd said, pointing to jagged lines on the printout. "The episodes are getting more frequent. Ray, I need you to understand continued stress at this level could trigger a major cardiac event. We're talking about a heart attack, possibly fatal." When Ray pressed for specifics, the answer was brutal. The damage to his heart was so severe that the doctor estimated a major event would occur in the next 3 to 6 months. "Retire now, completely, avoid stress, follow the medication regimen. You could have 10 good years." Dr. Martinez said gently, "Keep pushing yourself like this. 6 months, maybe less. The job's not worth it. Go fishing, get a cat. Just look after yourself. You've earned it." Ray looked at Aiden's file, reading about the boy's absent father. An overwhelmed mother, seeing the spark of intelligence that could so easily be snuffed out by one bad decision. He made a choice that would change both their lives. He was going to fight for Aiden Marsh, even if it killed him. The school board meeting was held in the library, with a panel of board members seated across a table that had seen better decades. Principal Pierce was flanked by 5 board members who would decide Aiden's fate. Doane Bellamy sat across from them, visibly angry. Next to him, Aiden slumped between his exhausted parents. Ray quietly took a seat in the back. Doane spoke first, his voice steady but hurt. He recounted 30 years of community service, of investing in local kids, of treating Aiden like family. $2,000 in damage, he said. Antique tools my father gave me. Destroyed. But the money isn't what hurts most. It's the betrayal. A few spectators murmured agreement as Doan demanded permanent expulsion and full prosecution. When Aiden was called to speak, his voice was barely audible. I know what I did was wrong. I know I hurt Mr. Bellamy and disappointed everyone. I don't have an excuse. Just ... I was angry and I made a stupid decision. I'm sorry. Then Ray stood, his heart hammering against his ribs. He fought for breath to calm himself down. I'd like to speak. Surprised looks passed between board members. Mr. Kellerman, you've only been at the school for 2 weeks. One pointed out, do you really feel qualified to assess this student's character? I've been managing people for 40 years. Ray replied, walking to the front of the room. I know the difference between someone who's truly bad and someone who's made a bad choice. Aiden Marsh isn't a criminal. He's a 15-year-old kid who got hurt and reacted badly. He destroyed my property, Doan said sharply. Yes, he did, and he should face the consequences for that. But permanent expulsion? Prosecution? That's not justice, that's revenge. And it's not going to help this boy become the man he could be. Ray took a deep breath, feeling the familiar tightness in his chest. Give me 6 months to mentor him. Let him work with me to repair the damage he caused. If he screws up again, if he doesn't show real change, then you can expel him. But at least give him the chance to earn his way back. And who's going to supervise this mentorship? The board president asked. You're a substitute teacher, not a permanent fixture. Then make me permanent, Ray said. The word surprising even himself. What was he doing? He could see Dr. Martinez in his mind's eye, shaking her head. He shook his head and plowed on. The school needs a teacher. I need a purpose. And Aiden needs someone who won't give up on him. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Ray looked directly at Doan. I'll personally guarantee his behavior. If he damages anything else, I'll pay for it myself. And I'll help him rebuild everything he destroyed with his own hands. Dawn's expression softened slightly. Words are easy, Ray. Actions matter. What guarantee do I have that this boy won't just cause more trouble? Ray's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Because I see something in him that reminds me of my son. And I failed my son. I'm not going to fail this one. The silence stretched until Aiden's mother stood up, tears streaming down her face. Please, she said, her voice cracking. Please give him another chance. He's a good boy underneath all that anger. He just needs someone to believe in him. After 15 minutes of deliberation, the board returned with their decision. Aiden would be placed on probation for the remainder of the school year. He would work with Ray to make restitution, subject to immediate expulsion if there were any further incidents. As Ray watched Aiden's face transform from despair to hope, he knew he'd made the only choice he could live with, however long he had left. The next morning, Ray found Aiden waiting by his truck, hands shoved deep in his pockets. The boy looked like he hadn't slept. Figured you'd changed your mind, Aiden said. I don't change my mind easily, Ray replied. But I need you to understand something. This isn't going to be easy. You're going to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. And if you screw this up, it's not just your future on the line. It's mine too. Ray had surveyed the damage the previous evening. It was worse than initially thought. Not just broken tools and ruined pieces, but a lifetime of careful organization destroyed in minutes of rage. The spray-painted words on the walls were particularly vicious, personal attacks that revealed the depth of Aiden's hurt. As they worked to scrape paint off the walls, Aiden opened up. I was so angry. He made me feel like I was important, like I had value. Then he threw me away like garbage. So you decided to throw away his work like garbage? Aiden's scraping intensified. I know it was stupid. I know it was wrong. But just for a moment, I wanted him to hurt like I was hurting. Ray understood that feeling better than he cared to admit. After Michael's death, he'd wanted to hurt everyone who still had their children, who still had hope for the future. He'd pushed away friends, isolated himself, and let his marriage to Sarah crumble under the weight of his grief. Hurt people, Ray said. It's the oldest story in the world. But it doesn't have to be your story. When Aiden asked why Ray was doing this, risking his reputation for some screwed-up kid, Ray's answer was honest and heartbreaking. Because 30 years ago, I was a screwed-up kid too. I make mistakes and hurt people I care about. But someone gave me a chance to do better. And because 7 years ago, I lost my son, and I never got to help him the way I should have. By the second week, Ray realized he'd underestimated the challenge, while Aiden showed up every day and worked without complaint, gradually repairing the damage he'd caused. The rest of the school was falling apart. His classroom management hadn't improved much. The younger kids responded to his gruff but gentle kindness, while the teenagers quickly picked up on his divided attention and pushed boundaries at every opportunity. Parents complained to Principal Pierce about the lack of structure, missed assignments, and general chaos. I'm getting pressure from the district, Pierce told them after a difficult day. They're questioning whether someone without teaching credentials should be handling multiple grade levels. Give me more time, Ray pleaded. I'm still learning. Time is what we don't have. The state inspector is coming next month, and if our test scores don't improve, they could shut us down entirely. As Pierce spoke, Ray felt a sharp, stabbing pain in his chest that made him gasp. He gripped the edge of her desk, trying to steady himself. Ray, are you okay? Fine, he managed, just tired. But he wasn't fine. The episodes were becoming more frequent and more intense. He had started carrying his medication, but it only helped so much. The stress was, quite literally, killing him. The crisis came on a Thursday in November. Ray was explaining fractions to a group of fourth graders when the pain hit like a sledgehammer to his chest. His vision blurred, his knees buckled, and he collapsed behind his desk. The classroom erupted in chaos, but Lena Santos, a quiet girl whose parents were doctors, immediately took charge. Everyone, stay calm, she said with surprising authority. Corinne, run and get Mr. Pierce. Tommy, call 911. Everyone else, give Mr. Kellerman space to breathe. Through the haze of pain, Ray could hear sirens approaching, and he could see the fear in his students' faces. Aiden appeared at his side, his face pale with terror. Don't you die on me, the boy whispered fiercely. Don't you dare die on me. Those were the last words Ray heard before his world faded to black. Ray spent 3 days in the hospital, drifting in and out of consciousness while doctors adjusted his medication and monitored his heart. When he finally came fully awake, the school was being covered by a retired teacher from the county. But it was Aiden who'd been there every day after school, asking when Ray was coming back. There was a soft knock on the door. Aiden peered in, holding a folder. They said you were awake, he said hesitantly. I brought you something. It's kind of my dream project. Thought you might like it. Inside the folder were detailed drawings of an elaborate greenhouse surrounded by a community garden complex. Raised beds for vegetables, a composting system, a small pavilion for outdoor classes, and pathways designed for wheelchair accessibility. Lena helped with the planning, Aiden explained, his voice gaining confidence. We talked to her mom about what vegetables grow best here, and Mr. Hendricks about what materials we'd need. Even Mr. Bellamy offered to help with the construction. He paused. We were going to name it after you, if you, well, you know. Ray chuckled as he studied the drawings, amazed by their sophistication. Takes more than a little heart attack to get rid of me. This is incredible work, Aiden. Really professional quality. The boy's face lit up. Do you think we can build it? I mean, when you get better? Ray looked at the hope in Aiden's eyes. I think we can. But I need to tell you something first. About my health. About why I came back to teach. When Ray returned to school the following Monday, he found his classroom transformed. The students had worked together to create a welcome back banner, and someone had organized his desk with military precision. But the biggest surprise was waiting in Principal Pierce's office. The school board met yesterday, he said. There were some concerns about your health, about whether you can continue teaching. Ray's heart sank. I understand if you need to replace me. Actually, they voted to offer you a permanent position. We'll make you part-time with a full-time aide to help manage the larger groups. The community raised money to fund the position after they heard about your collapse. Ray stared at him. I don't understand. People talk to your students, Ray. They heard about how you've been connecting with kids who were falling through the cracks, how you've been teaching them practical skills alongside academics. Pierce smiled. And then there's Aiden. Don Bellamy came to the meeting to report on his progress. He said the boy has been working like a man possessed, not just fixing what he broke, but improving on it. Don's so impressed he's offered Aiden a formal apprenticeship starting next summer. And one more thing, Aiden's greenhouse project. The Santos girl. Her parents have some friends in the council who got wind of what they were working on. The Urban Planning Committee approved it. They're donating the land behind the school, and local businesses are providing materials. Don's organizing the construction crew, and he specifically requested that you and Aiden oversee the project. The greenhouse project became the talk of the town. Every weekend, volunteers show up to help with construction. Don Bellamy worked alongside Aiden, teaching him advanced carpentry techniques. Lena coordinated with the Agricultural Extension Office to plan what they'd grow. Even the younger kids got involved, painting signs and preparing soil. Ray found himself energized by the project in a way he hadn't felt in years. Yes, the work was tiring, and yes, his heart condition hadn't disappeared. But having a clear purpose and a tangible goal seemed to give him strength he didn't know he possessed. You know what the best part is? Aiden said one Saturday as they worked on the greenhouse's foundation. My mom came to see it last week. She said she was proud of me. She should be, Ray replied, mixing concrete. You've worked hard. I never thought I'd be able to fix what I broke, Aiden continued. I thought once you screwed up that bad, that was it. Game over. Ray paused in his work. You know what I learned? It's never too late to build something better than what you tore down. Sometimes breaking something is the only way to realize how much you valued it. As winter turned to spring, the greenhouse took shape. It wasn't just a building. It was a symbol of what the community could accomplish when it came together. And at the center of it all was a boy who'd nearly been thrown away. Now working alongside the man whose property he'd destroyed, both of them building something beautiful from the ruins of their conflict. Sometimes the best way to save your own life is to spend it saving someone else's. Ray Kellerman thought he was coming out of retirement to help a school in crisis for 1 week. Instead, he found his true calling in the final chapter of his life. By refusing to give up on a boy everyone else had written off, Ray discovered that second chances aren't just for the young. They're for anyone brave enough to fight for them. Today, the community garden thrives behind the school, nourishing both bodies and spirits in a small town. That discovered the power of believing in second chances. Aidan Marsh graduated with honors and now runs his own custom woodworking business, employing local teenagers and teaching them the same patience and craftsmanship that Doane Bellamy once taught him. And Ray? He taught at the school for 3 more years, long enough to see Aidan graduate, and prove that sometimes the most important work we do comes when we think we're too old, too tired, or too broken to make a difference.